Most people carry a critical flaw they mistake for a virtue. They are harmless. They believe that if they are pleasant to the world will be pleasant to them. They mistake their lack of boundaries for a kind heart, walking into the marketplace of life with their vulnerabilities exposed, wondering why they keep getting bypassed. If you, as the architect of your life, do not master the art of seeing reality as it is, you aren't a player in this game. You are the prize to be won. I have watched brilliant people, geniuses in their craft, lose years of progress in a single afternoon. Why? Because they fell in love with a promise and ignored the person making it. They were sidelined by a simple smile. Think of naivety as a glass shield. It looks beautiful and clear, giving you the illusion of protection, but it shatters the moment a real weight is applied. To be naive is to project your own honesty onto people who have spent their lives mastering the art of the hidden agenda. It is not noble, it is a strategic disadvantage. Niccolo Machiavelli warned that the person who tries to be perfectly open in a world of ruthless players will soon be overshadowed. If you don't learn to recognize the hidden incentives of those around you, you aren't an owner of your destiny. You are merely a resource waiting to be utilized by someone more observant than you. The crowd finds comfort in their ignorance, comparing their small, safe lives while the high-stakes players circle. But we are here to break that cycle. Before we build, we must learn to defend. We begin by understanding exactly how the world identifies a target. Are you ready to stop being harmless and start being formidable? Let's look at the anatomy of a predator. The anatomy of a predator. In the wild, a predator doesn't attack the strongest member of the herd. They watch. They look for the slight hesitation, the distracted gaze, or the one that wanders too far from a position of strength. Human dynamics operate exactly the same way. People with hidden agendas don't look for evil people. They look for the signals of the naive. While the 99% are busy trying to look nice to everyone, the strategist is busy identifying who is an easy target. In my experience, people who are utilized for someone else's gain usually broadcast their weakness long before a move is made. They think they are being open, but to an opportunist, they are simply revealing their hand. There are 3 specific signals they look for. 1. Over-explaining. Naive people are terrified of being misunderstood. They talk too much, justifying their actions and revealing their insecurities. To a strategist, your long explanations are a map of your boundaries. They learn exactly where you are flexible because you've told them. 2. The yes reflex. This is the inability to hold a line. If you apologize when someone else disrupts your space, you have signaled that your boundaries are negotiable. They test you with small requests first. If you don't hold the line, they know you won't resist a major one. 3. High need for approval. The moment you show you need someone to like you, you have handed them the controls. An opportunist will provide that approval temporarily, just to see how much you will compromise to keep it. Think of it this way. The average person is a mirror, reflecting the emotions of whoever is in front of them. The strategist is a scanner, looking for the gap in the armor. As Robert Greene suggests, you must consider your intentions. If they can't read your signals, they can't find your leverage. The world isn't mean, it's just efficient. If you project the energy of a target, you will be treated like one. In a world of constant competition, these 6 rules serve as your armor and your map. You can either master them to protect your vision or stay unguarded and remain a target in someone else's game. The 6 rules of perception. Rule number 1, judge by actions, never by words. Most people are intoxicated by the sound of a good promise. They fall in love with potential. They hear a charismatic speaker and assume they've found an ally. This is the primary hallmark of the unaware. They are seduced by the script, while the architect only watches the movement. Words are the ultimate mask. They are free to produce and incredibly easy to manipulate. In my observation, the biggest setbacks in business and life happen because someone trusted a loyal speech while ignoring a pattern of inconsistent behavior. While the mediocre masses are busy comparing the nice things people have said to them, desperate to feel liked, the formidable person is busy looking at the data of the past. Think of words as smoke and actions as fire. Smoke can be shaped, blown around, or used to hide a path. It is an illusion. Fire, however, is a physical fact. It leaves a mark. It changes the landscape. If someone tells you they value partnership, but they disregard the interests of their current associates, they have just handed you their true identity. The herd ignores this data because it is uncomfortable. They want to believe the lie because the truth requires them to take action. But you must be more objective than that. You must realize that a person's history is a more accurate map than their mouth will ever be. Don't be the person who says, "But they seemed so sincere." Be the person who saw the shift coming months ago because you were watching their feet, not their lips. The lips can lie. The feet never do. Rule 2. Understand the will to power. The naive person believes that people act out of kindness or malice. The architect knows better. They understand that every living thing is driven by what Nietzsche called the will to power. This isn't about being evil, it is about gravity. Just as a planet doesn't ask permission to pull objects toward it, humans naturally pull resources, attention, and influence toward their own center. In my experience, the moment you stop asking, why were they so difficult, and start asking, what interest were they serving, the world finally starts making sense. Think of it this way. The average person sees a tree and thinks of shade. The strategist sees the tree and thinks of its structural value. Most people are busy comparing their moral standing, while the elite are busy identifying incentives. If you assume someone will help you just because it's the right thing to do, you are building your house on sand. If you want to stop being a target, you must realize that everyone has core objectives. When you understand what someone is aiming for, they become as predictable as a machine. Rule 3. Stop explaining yourself to the unqualified. There is a specific smell to a person who is seeking approval. It is the sound of constant justification. The herd feels a desperate need to be understood. They explain their choices, their dreams, and their boundaries to anyone who will listen. They think they are being honest, but in reality, they are handing over the keys to their fortress. Every time you explain yourself to someone who hasn't earned your trust, you are performing a strategic surrender. You are essentially saying, "Please tell me my choices are okay." The architect knows that the most powerful person in any room is the one who requires the least amount of external validation. Think of your plans as proprietary data. In the business world, giving away your blueprint for free is called a failure. In your personal life, it is called being naive. When you explain your why to people who don't have a stake in your success, you are giving them the exact map they need to slow you down or influence your emotions. I once watched a highly talented person lose a major opportunity simply because they talked too much about their fears to a colleague they thought was a friend. They were being real, but they were actually providing others with a map of their limitations. Machiavelli understood that a leader should be a great pretender, not because they are a liar, but because they understand that information is the most valuable currency on earth. Why would you give it away to the unqualified? Comparison is your best tool here. Look at the people who are always explaining. They're usually the ones at the bottom, seeking a seat at the table. Now look at the ones at the top. They speak in results, not excuses. If they didn't help you build it, they don't get to see the blueprints. Rule 4. Accept the reality of conflict. The biggest lie the herd believes is that if they are kind enough, the world will leave them in peace. They treat niceness as a universal shield, but in reality, it can be an invitation for the ambitious to take what belongs to you. You must understand a hard truth. Conflict is not an option. It is a feature of the system. Machiavelli famously noted that conflict is not avoided, but is only deferred to the advantage of others. When you avoid a necessary confrontation because you want to be liked, you aren't being a saint. You are simply volunteering to lose. While the average person is busy comparing how peaceful and non-confrontational they are, the architect is busy building a deterrent. Think of it this way. Conflict is like weather. You can hate the rain, you can pray for the sun, but the rain will still fall. The naive person gets soaked and complains about the sky. The strategist builds a roof. If you don't have the courage to stand your ground when someone encroaches on your territory, you are effectively telling the world that your resources are free for the taking. In my observation, those who claim they avoid drama are usually the ones most controlled by it because they never learned how to end it with a firm, objective boundary. They stay in a cycle of being utilized because they fear the momentary discomfort of saying no. You must realize that being formidable is the only way to achieve true peace. People don't respect those who can't stand up for themselves. They respect those who can but choose to stay calm. Rule 5. Study the shadows. Most people walk through life with a blindfold on, pretending that everyone around them is driven by logic and goodness. They are shocked when they are bypassed for a promotion or when someone reveals a hidden agenda. They are shocked because they refuse to study the shadows. To stop being naive, you must acknowledge that every human being has a shadow, a side driven by ego, envy, and the desire for status. While the mediocre masses are busy comparing their virtuous social media profiles, the architect is busy studying the patterns of influence. Think of this knowledge like a medical textbook. A doctor doesn't study a disease because they want to catch it. They study it so they can recognize the symptoms and prevent it from spreading. If you refuse to understand how manipulation works, you are like a traveler walking into a complex system without a map. You aren't purer than the rest of us. You are just more likely to be marginalized. I've sat in rooms where kind smiles were used to mask the most ruthless strategic moves. I've seen people use vulnerability as a tool to gain sympathy and leverage. If you don't know these moves exist, you are a spectator in your own life. Robert Greene teaches us that the world is a game of appearances. The naive person takes the mask for the face. The strategist looks for the gap where the mask doesn't fit. You must become a student of human nature's deeper corners, not to become a villain, but to become invulnerable. Ignorance is not a virtue. It is a vacancy sign for those who wish to move into your space. Rule 6. Abandon the victim mindset. Most people carry a burden they mistake for a virtue. They love their own suffering. This is the victim mindset, and it is the ultimate anchor for the herd. They stay trapped in a cycle of being utilized because they would rather feel morally superior and wronged than admit they were unprepared. Machiavelli understood that fortune favors the bold, and to keep her, one must conquer and master her. In modern terms, reality does not care about your feelings, it only responds to your strength. While the average person is busy comparing their scars and complaining about how unfair the system is, the architect is busy analyzing their own structural failures. Think of it this way. If you leave your front door wide open in a storm and your house gets flooded, do you blame the rain? No, you blame the fact that you didn't secure the door. Naive people blame the rain of other people's greed or dishonesty. The formidable person realizes that they are the ones who left the entrance unguarded. In my own journey, the most painful realization was that I wasn't a good person because I got misled. I was just a distracted strategist. I had to shed the version of me that loved being the victim to birth the version of me that could actually lead. The moment you ask, how did I make myself an easy target? You become the owner of the situation. The world stops happening to you and starts happening because of you. So, what happens after you master these techniques? What does the future look like for the person who has finally stopped being naive? It is not a future where you become a villain. It is a future where you become untouchable. When you possess the ability to see actions over words, to recognize the will to power, and to hold your boundaries with a cold, quiet strength, a strange thing happens. The opportunists disappear. They can sense your perception from across the room. Just as a predator can detect the slightest vulnerability, an opportunist can detect the lack of it. They don't test people who can see them coming. Compare yourself to who you were before. You were a passenger, hoping the driver was honest. Now, you are the architect. You gain a level of clarity that the herd will never know. While they are constantly shocked by betrayals, you will be moving 3 steps ahead because you saw the patterns before they even formed. This is the path of the 1%. You will find that people respect you more, not because you are nicer, but because you are more formidable. They know that your kindness is a choice, not a weakness. You have the blueprints, you have the armor. Now, it's time to lay the tracks. Are you ready to join the tribe of the architects? If you have cut your strings and are ready to rise, comment Architect below. Subscribe to secure your position. The game is just beginning.